Hello everyone, and welcome to the business case for High Performance Buildings version 2, a course developed by the Institute for Market Transformation in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Energy's Better Buildings program. Thank you to our partners at Better Buildings for their support in producing this video. My name is Chris Brown. I am the Director of Private Sector Engagement for the Institute for Market Transformation, where I lead the organization's efforts to identify and implement solutions that harness the growing momentum of leading companies and governments as they raise their climate and energy ambitions and help align their sustainability and business goals. Prior to IMT, I was the Director of Sustainability at Federal Realty Investment Trust, where I led the implementation of sustainability strategy, including all aspects of energy programming and the development operations of renewable energy portfolios, energy procurement, and capital deployment. With 15 years of experience in the commercial real estate sector, having worked in operations, development, and sustainability through a diverse mix of asset types, I hope to help bring that experience to today's discussion. Before we start, I'd like to tell you a bit about my organization, the Institute for Market Transformation, based in Washington, D.C. IMT is laser-focused on driving building energy efficiency into standard business practice. Our work establishes global best practices and focuses on solutions that can be replicated in localities of various sizes and geographies to deliver meaningful efficiency gains. IMT collaborates with building owners, tenants, governments, and other city and corporate stakeholders, along with NGOs and strategic partners to drive collective transformation. This course is designed to help you stay ahead of the game and the competition and obtain the critical knowledge in maximizing the value of high-performance buildings for the real estate professionals responsible for completing the transactions that are critical for success. Here's a preview of some of the key topics we will be covering. We will learn about the market demand for sustainability, advising clients on energy efficiency, exploring the financial benefits of energy-efficient buildings for tenants, building owners, and brokers alike. Develop the skills to assess how energy efficiency in high-performance buildings will impact a building's overall economic performance, and explore commonly used resources that are available for industry professionals, understanding how environmental policies can impact commercial transactions. Here are some further details about this presentation. We'll start with addressing why high-performance buildings matter for brokers, discuss high-performance building rating systems, regulatory requirements, creating value from high-performance buildings, bringing energy efficiency into the leasing process, discussion around lease negotiation, financing options for landlords and tenants, and ending with resources available for guidance and further study. As I mentioned earlier, this course is meant to help licensed real estate agents, brokers, leasing agents, and salespersons represent their clients and customers more effectively, as well as utilize their unique positions to help building owners and tenants use their space efficiently and reduce energy consumption. But before we dig too deeply into that, let's get into why any of this matters for you. Have your clients ever asked you any of these questions? Do buildings certified as energy efficient have higher rents and sale prices? How can I market my buildings as high performance? Do tenants prefer to rent in high performing buildings? Since brokers have roles as both gatekeepers and salespeople, there's a need to understand why a building is LEED or Energy Star and how this translates to rents premiums, higher sales prices, reduced vacancy, lower operating costs, and so on. In your role, you are expected to understand the market offerings, offer educated suggestions, and be able to point your clients towards mutually beneficial outcomes and ultimately better performing buildings. We hope that the information presented in this course will help you close a deal and leave you with happy clients. As we dig into today's presentation, it's important to establish why buildings. Why should we care? What is the impact of buildings and their energy use? This chart helps establish why buildings are important. In the United States, the buildings rank higher in energy consumption than almost every other country in the world excluding China and the United States in total energy consumption. Building energy use significantly affects the environment, economic prosperity, and the health and well-being of people everywhere. And the building sector is one of the top producers of greenhouse gas emissions. For example, in New York City, 68% of the citywide GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, come from buildings. This is similar in many cities across the country, but does vary based on the availability and effectiveness of local transportation systems and scale of local industrial activity. These details matter because of the impact on the environment, which is something that key stakeholders find important in their response to climate change. Buildings contribute grossly to the greenhouse gas emissions, but what's the business case? The business case is that the combination of demand for higher performing buildings combined with lower operating expenses leads to a higher overall net operating income and therefore higher valuations for the buildings. The U.S. Department of Energy recently compiled research which they published in Raising the Rent Premiums, moving green building research beyond certifications and rent, in which they uncovered that the high-performing buildings, or green buildings, have 17% lower overall operating expenses, which combined with the rental premiums yielded a net operating increase of 28% across the buildings studied. This definitely qualifies as a worthwhile example. So what does it all mean for brokers? It means that more and more tenants are demanding high-performing buildings and spaces, that your knowledge helps maximize results for the owners by increasing the market value and interest of buildings and improving the overall deal values. For those that represent tenants, it means that high-performing spaces and sustainable attributes are important to business leaders as they translate into productivity and employee retention. It gives you a leadership opportunity and a competitive edge. More and more, clients, owners, tenants, and developers are asking about energy performance, which could be the deciding factor for selecting a building or space. Navigating sustainability factors is an area where knowledgeable professionals are invaluable and stand out. Your clients will benefit from your ability to be their trusted advisor. I'd like to give you a first-hand example. For IMT, when we leased space in our building, it was important that we found a broker that understood our values and how it was critically important that we found a building that had achieved high-performance building certifications, was well managed, and had features that promoted employee health, wellness, and productivity. Thankfully, we found a location that achieved Energy Star certifications, had multiple LEED certifications, and was open to working with us on including energy efficiency features in our space, such as adding a sub-meter, LED lights, and other controls. Low VOC emissions, plenty of daylight, adequate bike racks, and a fitness center helped meet our health and wellness goals. Not only were we well advised, but we now have a relationship with our landlord that is jointly beneficial on more than just our space. They serve a role as an important and valued partner in our work. As you may know, clients are seeing these features as must-have amenities. Getting a strong foundation in the value of high-performing buildings will help you cast a wider net to appeal to a much wider audience. We are now going to pivot to building rating systems. My hope is that many listeners are familiar with LEED and Energy Star. But we're going to start with these two certifications because they are the most popular certification systems in the US. In many cities, these two certifications are often synonymous with establishing the baseline for Class A buildings and establishing excellence in operations. LEED and Energy Star also have a widely understood meaning outside of the building environment, and in turn are widely recognized as a marker indicating overall building performance. LEED, the leadership in energy and environmental design, is run by the United States Green Building Council, USGBC. It's an internationally recognized rating system that covers a wide range of building types, new and existing buildings, LEED for neighborhoods, LEED for cities, LEED commercial interiors, and so on. Every day, over 2 million square feet of real estate is certified under this program. LEED recognizes the best practices in design and operation related to the overall sustainability and environmental impact. Energy Star focuses on buildings' energy performance. It is managed by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Building energy performance is given a score on a 1 to 100 scale, which compares a building's energy performance to other similar buildings. Buildings with a rating of 75 or higher are eligible for certification under this program. Energy Star and its platform is critical for meeting benchmarking ordinances common in many parts of the country. More than 25,000 buildings across the United States have been certified as Energy Star compliant with a score of 75 or higher and get to put a plaque or decal on the front of their building denoting excellence. These two programs have been around for a while and are established to help indicate building performance standards. Let's turn our focus for a moment to the business case for LEED and Energy Star. Recent studies have shown that companies see value in these programs to help them stand out and also see a direct correlation to improving their overall financial performance. McGraw-Hill did a study that found that LEED buildings use 25% less energy and can reduce operational costs by 19%, which is fairly consistent with the numbers produced by DOE in the earlier example. Further, many corporate leaders believe that sustainability is a market differentiator and an important attribute to follow. Saving on energy and operational costs is great, but is there a sales premium or a rental increase? Additionally, are Energy Star buildings more attractive when it comes to reducing vacancy and improving overall occupancy? The answer is yes. From some of our own research and from that of the Department of Energy and others, we have found that there are rental premiums, sales premiums, overall higher occupancy, and in general, a true value to be found in investing in better buildings. Let's look at the landscape of LEED and Energy Star in the context of a city. The information portrayed here is available on the Green Building Information Gateway and is available for most cities. This information is valuable to attain as it gives more context to market participation in building rating systems. Just like the requirement to know comparable rents, terms, or amenities, building certifications are also useful to know in performing our jobs effectively. These certifications are important to include as it portrays the buildings in their best light and meets many of your clients' demands, leading to a wider appeal and allowing you to help create additional value for your clients during this process. Energy Star is not only for the buildings overall. Tenants are now able to take advantage of energy savings opportunities in their own hands through EPA's new pilot program for tenant spaces. In 2018, the EPA Energy Star pilot asked participants to drive efficiency through 5 best practices: metering energy use with submeters, using lighting efficiently, using efficient equipment and operating it efficiently as well, and sharing data back and forth between landlord and tenant. Energy Star for tenant spaces will be relaunched in early 2020 for office space, with plans to expand into other building sectors throughout the year. Let's take a moment to recap 3 things that we need to know. Certifications increase the resale value of buildings. It's easier to market the building and stand out from competitors. Energy Star and LEED are certifications that are seen as a standard for quality buildings. Using the information presented here to help your clients make the business case for high performance certifications will help keep you ahead of your competition. Now that we've covered the 2 most common high performance building certifications with LEED and Energy Star, it's time to talk about 2 rating systems that address the market's growing interest in incorporating health and wellness into design and operations. Well and Fitwell are programs that satisfy this market demand for understanding, measuring, and quantifying a building's health and wellness performance. How can you get your clients to see the value of incorporating wellness into their decisions to make design or operational improvements? At a high level, consider some of these benefits for your tenant and landlord clients. For those looking to lease space, stress how these spaces increase employee health and productivity. Those looking to lease up their buildings, stress how this is a highly sought after amenity. Some are even willing to pay rent premium for. Healthy spaces may also improve shareholder relations, such as improving corporate sustainability reporting. More importantly, this is a valuable effort for tenants and owners to pursue when looking for market differentiation. LEED and Energy Star have a strong hold on establishing building performance, and WELL and FitWell are becoming a competitive standard for office and multifamily buildings looking to set a competitive edge in health and wellness.
So what's the case for investing in wellness? Stoke, a sustainability consultant, recently compiled research called the Financial Case for High Performance Buildings, quantifying the bottom line of improved productivity, retention, and wellness. And what they found for the businesses is that there are significant components of success related to hiring and retaining employees, employee productivity, and even so far as to identify that health and wellness programs have a direct correlation on medical expenses, and that there's a forward-looking view that there's going to be an increasing responsibility for employers to provide more and more healthcare related programs and pick up more and more responsibility around health and costs associated therein. Stoke took their research even further and determined that there is an important component of health and wellness that isn't just tenant and business manager related. It goes so far as to translate their research into the overall increased asset value. And as you can see in the table above, there are compelling reasons to invest in adding health and wellness into building investment strategies beyond just the simple components of wider appeal and being stakeholder responsive. WELL is managed by the International Well Building Institute, and this is a rating system that fundamentally recognizes new construction in existing buildings and interiors for their elements related to air, water, and natural light. Similar to LEED buildings, you can achieve certified silver, gold, and platinum level results. FitWell is a building certification program run by the Center for Disease Control and the General Services Administration, as well as the Center for Active Design. FitWell also focuses on wellness with science-based credits that promote community health, physical activity promotion, and healthy food options. And buildings are rated on a 1, 2, 3 star scale. With health and wellness, we believe there are 3 fundamental things to remember. Health and wellness features are sought after amenities. Investing in wellness is not just a business improvement, but it actually goes towards the overall success of the tenants within your buildings. Health and wellness is an important contributor and something you should help your clients consider, as these features are very important to stand out in a crowded and competitive marketplace. We'll shift to the discussion building upon the regulatory requirements and trends in policy around high performance buildings. As you can see, throughout the United States, building energy performance policies are in existence not only in the major gateway cities and coastal, but prevalent throughout the 41 cities depicted on this map. With a mix of state, municipal, and city-led policies in place, we're seeing a growing trend towards climate action being directed towards the building sector. Perhaps the most common type of building policy is benchmarking. Benchmarking is an effort around creating transparency, accountability, and perhaps more to the point, awareness about building performance. As you can see here, we label many things to provide the information to make good decisions. Just like the calorie information about food helps us guide our meal choices, building energy consumption, And benchmarking against similar buildings is also valuable in driving capital investment decisions. It is also useful in determining whether a space or building meets tenant needs around comfort, potentially pass-through costs, future capital expenses, which are all part of the competitive equation around meeting demand for high-performance buildings, whether it's covering health and wellness, productivity, or other such matters. Some of the most common building energy and performance mandates include energy benchmarking, often performed in the Environmental Protection Agency's Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which produces a building score, which is a percentile ranking of peer and similar use buildings, retro commissioning and energy audits, which periodically require trained professionals to revisit building performance and operations, verifying that systems, controls, and all actions necessary to eliminate energy waste are identified and hopefully acted upon. In some areas, lighting upgrades are included as standalone policies or as part of building energy codes, addressing energy density and lighting as part of the process of improving space. Similarly, submetering of equipment and tenant spaces also can be a standalone policy or a part of the billing methodology for recovering energy costs. And last, we have net zero energy policies. These are evidenced in the District of Columbia or California, and create a policy around a combination of improving the building's energy performance and lowering the carbon content of energy procured from the utility grid, whether that's through the use of renewable energy credits or the addition of on-site solar or other renewable energy forms. Shifting for a moment to New York, I want to draw attention to another type of policy that wasn't mentioned in the previous slide. Building performance standards, or as it's known in New York as Local Law 97, are a new type of building performance policy that is intended to create a higher level of energy efficiency and energy and carbon reductions in existing buildings. In many locations, major energy improvements are addressed through code and permitting, but that only addresses a very small fraction of buildings each year, often around 5%. In order for cities to meet their climate goals and address building performance standards have been rolled out. New York is one location, but so has this effort been undertaken in Washington, D.C., as well as Washington State. Again, another growing trend that we believe is very important to point out that is necessary to get ahead of the curve, as it can affect operations, both for the landlord and tenant, and typically carry significant fines or other penalties to induce compliance in meeting the energy reduction targets set forth. When it comes to understanding the impact of these policies, it's important to understand that regulation is disruptive to business as usual. It can affect large swaths of buildings, regardless of use types across the areas you're working. And the impact of regulation is important to understand, as these policies can have lasting impacts on the transactions you're pursuing, whether altering net effective rents, prompting considerations around lease term, or the specific clauses and language used. The impact of policy can also impact design and the use of space, and even transfer over into investment sales or development decisions. As part of the leading edge advisors to your clients, it's very important to be able to navigate and comply these laws. Not only will it give you a competitive edge and advantage, it will really stand out and help and create value for the people you're working with. Transitioning from policy impact, we're now going to discuss creating value with high performance buildings. In this section, we're going to visit where the value for high performance buildings comes from. The value is something that shifts depending on the perspective, whether you're a developer looking to build a building for a quick sale or for a long-term hold. Whether you're the landlord and the property manager looking at operational improvements and long-term considerations like tenant renewal or improving NOI through reinvestment in your space. Or a tenant looking to make decisions about productivity and ultimately profitability by incorporating things that matter to your stakeholders, your employees. On this slide, we'll see things from a value perspective from the developer or owner. And in this bubble, you'll see that there's higher resale values. Perhaps, as we mentioned earlier, rent premiums over the market, competitive advantage and the ability to stand out by having the amenities and the building performance that are important to tenants and the people you're trying to fill the building with. Leasing and sale velocity, casting that wider net to a broader audience, appealing to the market demand for performance, and appealing to the individual players that are out there looking for individual spaces, are all very invaluable considerations that lead to the increase in building value. As the landlord and property manager, you have increased marketability. Lower vacancy rates are often defined as part of high performance buildings. You want to project your corporate image and prestige. You want to reduce downtime and ultimately improve NOI by lowering O&M costs. From the tenant perspective, the value of high performance buildings comes in the increased productivity, retention, health and wellness, and productivity benefits of being in a space. It comes from meeting employee and stakeholder demand for corporate social responsibility. And some of the key considerations are the reduced downtime and lower occupancy costs from increases in energy costs or other utility-related expenses, but also affects things like healthcare costs. Adding to some of the value consideration, let's look at some of the additional drivers for increased sustainability in the building space. Perhaps the biggest driver of change is not the driver of sustainability reporting, but in fact what it actually represents, which is investor demand for more information, more detail, more action, and more accountability for promoting environmental, social, and governance best practices throughout investor-owned real estate, corporations, and certainly through publicly traded companies. Digging in a little more deeply to this driver of reporting on sustainability action, you can see on this slide that the S&P 500 companies have had a very dramatic increase in reporting over the last 7 years. What this is really a representation of is the investor demand for more information, for the ability to assess impact, provide modeling, and looking at the future of climate action. But more importantly, it also provides an insight into management quality, additional data that can be used to help assign investment criteria around asset valuations, providing valuable intelligence on whether premiums or discounts are warranted to investment guidance. Carrying on with the corporate sustainability reporting trend, there was a realized need for sector-specific guidance for commercial real estate, specific sustainability metrics that led to the introduction of Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, which provides valuable insights that are key to the real estate industry. GRESB, as it's commonly referred to, has grown to represent a very large pool of assets worldwide and shows an ever-increasing trend of improved performance as measured by the institutional investors that represent nearly $18 trillion in capital across the world. GRESB divides its scoring into two primary categories: management and policy, which is a measure of leadership and the forward-thinking nature of running an organization sustainably, and implementation and measurement, which accounts for nearly 3/4 of the score and digs into the action and abilities of the team to improve the performance of buildings year over year. GRESB also creates a roadmap that not only validates a company's performance, but creates a guide for measuring and improving key elements. Another driver is the evolution of consumer and customer preference. Some of the statistics here spell out that key demand drivers from stakeholders that are either important to your tenants or to your clients as building owners will place a lot of direction and effort in pushing forward more sustainable practices. In other words, sustainability will become even more prevalent in the workplace as millennials continue to climb the corporate ladder and become a bigger driver of economic growth. Another driver of change is technological advancement. From AI and smart meters, mobility and 5G, we hear about advancements in technology everywhere we go. Buildings are no exception. From data and controls to advancements in the way that people use space and move about buildings will all lead to advancements in tenant comfort and usefulness, and hopefully also energy efficiency. This trend has implications for how landlords interact with tenants and building systems, whether it's security or tenant comfort. It's much easier to control buildings now than it ever has been in the past. Predictive analytics, individual controls for spaces, the ability to submeter and bill back in near real time, all change the way that landlords and tenants interact and is a major driver of improvements. Along with these advancements in technology, tenants want to control and understand the impact of their operations on their bottom line. Submetering is often at the top of the list for improvements that people want in their buildings, whether it's landlords, property managers, operations folks looking for data to manage and control a building's energy consumption and comply with regulations, or tenants looking for controllability and understanding the impact of the decisions they're making and the ability to report back to their stakeholders on the improvements they're making. Submetering and the data that comes along with it creates additional opportunities and additional ability to provide valuable services that increase everybody's enjoyment and utility of the buildings. We're going to shift now to the business case for high performance buildings. At the core of making a business case for high performance buildings is the income capitalization approach to value creation. Detailed below are some simple outlines on the value creation aspects of high performance buildings through the increase in rents, in lowering operating expenses, maintenance, and capital reserves leads to an overall increase in net operating income. When comparing slightly lower cap rates for green buildings to a higher NOI leads to the higher overall valuations that we expect higher performing buildings to achieve. Digging into that, net operating income is the bottom line measure, but there's so much more to NOI than just the rental rates. Of course, higher NOI and higher rental rates leads to higher commissions for real estate professionals, but vacancy rates and turnover time are markedly lower in high performance buildings. Operating expenses and higher recovery rates for expenditures also follow suit. So how do high performance buildings lead to increasing NOI through performance measures? Since the improvement to value is about more than just expenses, let's go into this in a little more detail. It's easy to make the connection between higher rents and lower occupancy, lower downtime as key drivers of net operating income. Also important is to consider the base building and tenant consumption as their major parts of the operating expenses, which lead to an improving NOI. One of the key considerations is how space is utilized, how tenant improvement allowances are used on build-outs, and the importance of considering the way that tenant operations affect the overall energy consumption costs. One of the often cited statistics is that 70% of energy consumption is attributed to tenant use needs, and the other 30% is determinant upon base building infrastructure. With these values in mind, the ability to have property management, strong leases, strong operating principles in place becomes very important for controlling energy consumption and overall building performance. Giving a little context to these concepts is a case study performed by Bentall Kennedy, or Green Oak, throughout their portfolio. Bentall Kennedy did a side-by-side comparison of 100 Energy Star certified office buildings against non-certified buildings over a 10-year period. What they found were statistics that were very similar to those determined by the Department of Energy, but also went a little further. There was a major reduction in energy in LEED certified properties compared to those non-certified, a higher occupancy rate in Energy Star certified buildings, and I think more importantly, a higher tenant satisfaction score on LEED certified buildings, which is important to keep in mind as buildings become ever more importantly focused on amenities and tenant satisfaction as part of renewals and attracting the right people to properties. So as part of the business case for high performance buildings, what does this mean for the broker community? Well, high performance buildings yield higher rents, faster sales, which leads to, of course, higher commissions. Knowing more about high performance buildings gives you a competitive edge and allows you to perform a better job for your clients. Corporate responsibility and stakeholder demand are big drivers behind the client's actions, whether it's the owner or the tenants, and that there's a demand for these features because of that. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more about how green leasing can help facilitate building improvements and ensure that the performance from a financial perspective, as well as an operational perspective, stays consistent. So now let's focus on bringing energy efficiency into the leasing process. Who pays for efficiency? Well, the answer to that question depends on what type of lease is used. Various lease types, as outlined here in full service gross, modified gross, and net lease, all have different contributions and different ways of passing through the costs related to building expenses and operating costs. On the left-hand side, we see the full service lease, which is often known for having all of the expenses for operating and capital included in the rental rate. All the way over on the right, where the tenant pays the majority of the expenses, is the net lease, which is a contribution of all the operating expenses on a pro rata share passing through to the tenants as additional rent as this costs are incurred by the landlord. In the middle is the modified gross lease, which, much like the full service lease in the first year, has any subsequent year's increased operating costs passed through at a pro rata basis to the tenants. The cost components are important for setting up something that we know as the split incentive problem. So building upon the least barriers of who pays for efficiency is who benefits from efficiency. At the heart of the split incentive problem is an inability to recover capital. Typically, capital recovery for energy efficiency comes from operational expense savings. But in many of the lease situations, particularly those that we described previously, there is often not a path for the landlord to achieve the energy savings while still being responsible for investing the capital. In a scenario where there is no return on invested capital, there will be no good reason to invest capital in energy efficiency. thus the split incentive problem that needs to be addressed through leasing. Interjecting energy efficiency and high performance into leases starts with site selection. Assuming you're a tenant rep, advising your clients with this questionnaire can be a very helpful place to begin. Guiding your tenants towards efficient spaces or landlords that are known to be able to meet their demands is a very important part of the process, and these questionnaires are available online at our website, imt.org. As a landlord rep, you can also cast a wider net, understand your potential tenants' needs, and find ways to satisfy their demand for performance space, or understand how your building relates to their larger goals and initiatives. Again, the information around casting a wider net can be found on our website. Green leasing. So what is a green lease? A green lease can be pursued either in the standard clauses and terms within the lease itself, as an addendum or add-on in the appendixes of a lease, or through a renewal or side letter agreement. Green leases add high performance or energy aligned clauses, overcome the split incentive, and alleviate the need to discuss every build out and upgrade at future points in the relationships. The benefits of a green lease are lower operating expenses, increased occupancy and base rents, as we've discussed previously, that can lead to employee attraction and retention, as we saw in the satisfaction results of Bentall-Kennedy's study. Assist in meeting corporate sustainability goals through the increased ability to obtain data and transparent information. Lead to employee productivity, comfort, and health and wellness. And comply with local and future regulations, which we're seeing pop up, as discussed as well. Some examples of green lease requirements are shown here. Some general sustainability requirements are things like providing the energy and water consumption data from a tenant or from a landlord upon request. Other examples include the ability to perform and operate in a space that helps meet LEED program requirements for either initial certification or recertification. These often can't be removed from the leases because they're so important to obtaining those certifications. And then tracking the transparency and collaboration. Because municipal laws, as we've discussed, are growing in many jurisdictions, the ability to obtain the energy information is critical to compliance in these locales. Other areas that we see green lease clauses include building rules and regulations, whether it's changes to operating hours or weekend operations. Day cleaning is another example of the ability to overlap the cleaning function with occupancy, leading to the buildings being shut down many hours earlier. Or also the assignment of tax benefits and tax credits or utility incentives for efficient space, and the ability to pass those through to the tenant or to the landlord as necessary. The federal government, through the General Services Administration, is leading the way on high performance building efforts. As the largest tenant in the country, the GSA requires in their leases that they rent Energy Star buildings, that they have efficient build-outs, and that they must move into buildings that adhere to a LEED Gold standard when it's new construction. Another example of organizations leading on building efficiency is the Natural Resources Defense Council. NRDC, in their New York office, for one example, includes cost recovery clauses, provisions to track energy and water use, and ensure efficient build-out, and operational guides are in place. They do this because it's important to their culture and mission of their organization. And it's another example of how organizations are leading on this. Another example is Kimco Realty. With their portfolio-wide sustainability and leasing strategy, Kimco has implemented many green lease clauses that aren't standard in the retail sector, such as fixed CAM, efficient build-out guidelines, requiring sub-metering in all tenant spaces. And their attempt to overcome the split incentive has included a cost recovery clause that's enabled them to achieve 40% energy reductions throughout their centers by pursuing a LED lighting retrofit program. IMT, in conjunction with our partners at the Department of Energy and the Better Buildings program, run an industry recognition program that helps firms include sustainability and efficiency clauses into the standard leases. We help provide guidance for overcoming the split incentive, and to date have helped organizations with press, marketing, and the tools necessary to make their leases greener. Recognition is available for landlords, tenants, and brokers. In the broker team transaction award, recognizing when multiple stakeholders come together to sign green leases. Over the last 5 years, Green Lease Leaders has helped a number of organizations implement and institute green leasing. The list below represents over 2 billion square feet of commercial space that is under green leases. Some trends from our past green lease leaders includes Rocky Mountain Institute's net zero building operation, Kimco for sub-metering portfolio-wide and saving millions of dollars on operating expenses and energy costs that benefit both Kimco and their tenants, the tower companies for encouraging indoor air quality and Fitwell certifications, and Brixmor for on-site renewable energy generation power purchase requirements that extend not only for common area maintenance, but also through to the tenants, enabling them to achieve energy savings and clean energy inputs. The 2019 green lease trends included the City of Cleveland putting requirements in municipal building policies for green leases, Kilroy stipulating green leases for co-working spaces, Sabi bringing green leasing to data center customers, and Stag Industrial for putting together an internal financing program for tenant energy efficiency projects, leading to higher renewals and better relationships with their tenants. To become a green lease leader or learn more about the program, please visit greenleaseleaders.com to learn more. In addition to the traditional capital sources, let's explore some of the financing options for landlords and tenants for energy efficiency efforts. One relatively new option is Property Assessed Clean Energy, or CPACE. PACE is a financing structure that allows owners to take on debt for energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements that is repaid through an assessment on their property tax bill. To date, over 750 projects worth more than $250 million in value have been performed. Some of the pros for this program are the avoidance of capital outlay or keeping your capital stack in place, pursuing positive cash flows therein. This is, however, best suited for building owners and long-term holders, as it has significant legal and administrative expenses associated with it. Another financing option available in many locations is on-bill financing. This is an option that's available through the utility or a lender who supplies the capital to the utility customers to make energy improvements and recovers their cost through regular installments on the utility bill. On the upside, it's often a short-term or quick payback project, so not necessarily open to large or long-term complex projects. One of the cons is that it's only offered in some locations and not widely available throughout the country. Another financing structure is energy service agreements or managed energy service agreements that are performed by, in many situations, energy services companies or ESCOs. Noresco, Lockheed Martin, there are many. The pros are that the energy savings pay for the projects. They're off balance sheet, preserving your capital. The downside is that many of the providers only look for large projects or big capital outlays and are often constrained performing small projects or ones that have an exceedingly long payback period. As we wrap up today's discussion, we wanted to shift to resources that we believe would be helpful in your future endeavors. For exploring more financing solutions, please look at the Better Buildings Financing Navigator as part of the Better Buildings initiative. There are a number of online tools that help public and private sector organizations find efficiency and renewable solutions. Our partners at the Retail Industry Leaders Association have provided more details around financing sustainability. Please check them out at retailcrc.org at the link down at the bottom of this slide. And finally, we wanted to show you some of IMT's resources and take you back to the Green Lease Leaders Library, as well as IMT's larger resource library around energy efficiency and building sustainability projects. If IMT can be at all helpful in the future, please feel free to reach out at my information provided here. And if you're a real estate broker interested in being part of this ongoing research and education, please reach out to us. We are currently looking for volunteers to review and provide market insights for some short educational documents. Thank you very much for joining us for the business case for high performance buildings. We hope that there were valuable insights provided to you during this presentation and that you'll be able to go forward and create and capture the value of real estate through your efforts. Thank you very much.